DAME, Canada's domestic Arctic mobility enhancement project, has been grinding through the procurement pipeline for over a decade. However, it picked up steam in November 2025 when a certain pair of companies announced they'd team up to offer a vehicle, one to replace the military's current BV206 fleet with a new Arctic mobility capability. In today's video, we take a look at the requirements, the outgoing machine, and the known competition to supply a new vehicle. So, let's get started. When it comes to project requirements, this is what the Government of Canada has to say. The project will deliver an amphibious, high-mobility vehicle that can protect its occupants from extreme environmental conditions. The project intends to deliver a common vehicle platform in 4 variants: command post or CP, troop carrying, cargo and equipment carrying, and ambulance. It then goes on to say that a quantity of trailers will be required proportional to the support needs of the fleet. All of this will provide specialized mobility capability to units responding to domestic Arctic contingencies in all terrains and all seasons. The publicly stated funding page for DAME is 500 million Canadian dollars to 1 billion Canadian dollars. As for timeline, reporting from the Ottawa Citizen says that the Canadian military hopes to have a new fleet of tracked vehicles ready for operations in the Arctic by the end of the decade. And as we stated at the introduction, this project is to replace the aging fleet of BV206 vehicles purchased in the 1980s from Sweden and currently still in service. To be more precise, initial delivery is stated on the project webpage to be 2031/2032, and final delivery by 2032/2033, with up to 170 vehicles being acquired. True North Strategic Review specifies that this will be split 153 for the Army and 17 for the Royal Canadian Air Force. So those are the basics of the program. The outgoing vehicle, the BV206 tracked carrier, has 4 tracks that propel it through water, making it amphibious. As you can see, its large track area allows the vehicle to travel over deep snow and soft ground that would be impassable to almost any other tracked and wheeled vehicles. Cars are coupled together by a central articulated steering assembly, while hydraulic cylinders steer the vehicle and turn the cars relative to each other. The Canadian Forces use these aging vehicles in 3 roles: command post, medevac, and cargo, and it's added that these are predominantly for use by the Canadian Army Immediate Reaction Units in domestic operations in both winter and Arctic conditions. For specifications, here are the facts and figures as listed by the Canadian Forces. Basic weight, 4,440 kilograms. Combat load, 6,340 kilograms. Length, 6.81 meters. Width, 1.85 meters. And height, 2.4 meters. Upper speed is 50 kilometers per hour, while range is 330 kilometers. Maximum grade is 31%, while side slope is 35%. Running on diesel fuel, these vehicles have a 160-litre capacity, and their consumption is listed as 0.48 litres per kilometre. Again, these vehicles are amphibious, but are notably not armoured. Indeed, the lightweight fiberglass chassis helps to reduce weight for increased mobility. Per the government webpage, each vehicle has a stated crew of 5, with the ability to accommodate 11 passengers. We find these numbers to be a bit strange, as we can't imagine needing any more than a driver, commander, and gunner, and even then, a driver is really the minimum in a domestic operations context. Other sources say that the BV206 can carry up to 17 people, 6 in the front compartment, the driver plus 5, and 11 in the back. Esprit de Corps explains that the outgoing BV206s were acquired back in the early 1980s, with 78 ordered from Swedish manufacturer AB Hägglunds and Soner. The website goes on to say that, over the years, Canada has let its BV206 fleet, quote, more or less lapse into oblivion, reporting in February 2026 that there are presently 47 of the original 78 still on the books, but only about 18 of those vehicles are still in running order. The Ottawa Citizen, in speaking with a defence spokesperson, adds that 55 BV206s were being stripped for spare parts and then disposed of. Esprit de Corps adds one rather interesting and little-remembered fact. At one point, Canada planned to build and operate a massive fleet of 800 Canadianized BV206s. This was to be part of a major policy plan to create a total force mix of regular and reserve units, clearly something that never materialized. The Ottawa Citizen in February 2026 reported that there was conflicting information about DAME project specifics. Indeed, while it's publicly understood that a request for bids would be issued in 2027 and the first of the new vehicles would be operating by 2031, military officers speaking with the media outlet Canadian Army Today stated that the request for bids was set to come out sometime in 2026, followed by a contract in 2027. There is also mixed information available about the cost of the project. Indeed, industry representatives were told in April 2025 that the cost would be between $100 million and $249 million. But, as we noted earlier, the government webpage for the project says the cost is between $500 million and $1 billion. If it were a smaller discrepancy, it might not be too concerning, but it looks to be quite a large gap. One has to wonder if one figure is only for acquisition cost, while the other, higher figure includes the total lifespan of the new vehicles. We're sure things will be made clearer as time progresses. But on the topic of new vehicles, it's understood that there are at present 3 bidders currently hoping to land a contract. The first team could be considered the frontrunner, given one company's experience in supplying armoured vehicles to the Canadian Army, and the other one being the original maker of the BV206. If you haven't guessed the companies, well, it's a combination of General Dynamics Land Systems Canada in London, Ontario, and BAE Systems Hägglunds. This team is putting forward the BVS-10 Beowulf platform, and an official press release states that this teaming agreement, quote, combines BAE Systems Hägglunds' deep expertise in all-terrain vehicle design with GDLS's extensive in-service support capabilities across Canada. True North Strategic Review reporting in July 2026 says that the competition has moved to limited tendering and that it only involves 2 other teams, Rheinmetall Canada, partnering with UTV International, and Rochelle and Singapore-headquartered ST Engineering. Rheinmetall Canada and UTV International would offer the Canadian Army the Voyager, originally made by the latter, a company based in Montreal. It's explained by the Ottawa Citizen that the made-in-Canada Voyager D12 personal carrier is an amphibious, articulated, hybrid electric off-road transport vehicle. As for the third option, it was back at CanSec 2025 that Rochelle signed an exclusive agreement with ST Engineering to produce the Extreme V vehicle in Canada. Part of the team's pitch is that Rochelle will lead domestic production and will actively engage with Indigenous-owned companies to support key elements of the program. We should note that the Bronco is ST Engineering's militarized armored version of the Extreme V, but this vehicle is not being put forward, as Canada appears to be looking for an unarmored platform. Comparing the D12, BVS-10 and Extreme V side by side, the BVS-10, which we'll just call the Beowulf, can transport up to 14 personnel. The D12 can carry up to 12, while it's 14 for the Extreme V. The Beowulf's payload is said to be approximately 8,000 kilograms at 65 kilometers per hour. For the D12, it's listed as 11,500 pounds, or about 5,216 kilograms. The Extreme V's payload is 4,000 kilograms. For gross weight, it's 15.5 tons for the Beowulf and 14 tons for the D12, while Extreme V is the lightest of them all at 10 tons. For max speed, the Beowulf can travel up to 70 kilometers per hour, while it's 60 for the D12 and Extreme V. When it comes to range, the Beowulf brochure says that it can be between roughly 400 kilometers up to roughly 1,000 kilometers, depending whether it's on-road or off-road. For the D12, it's 300 kilometers off-road and 400 kilometers on-road, so quite a huge difference on the upper end. Extreme V gives a single figure of 350 kilometers, so quite a huge difference on the upper end when compared with the Beowulf. The Beowulf's operating temperature is said to be as low as minus 46 degrees Celsius, while it's minus 48 for the D12. UTV adds that the D12's maximum high operating temperature is 49 degrees. Extreme V's high temp is the same, but according to its brochure only goes down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. For power output, the Beowulf's Cummins engine sits at 285 horsepower, while it's about 322 horsepower for the D12's Mercedes diesel engine. The engine of the Extreme V is just 200 horsepower. So it would appear that the BVS10 outperforms the D12 and Extreme V in many ways: payload, max speed, and range. The D12 is a made-in-Canada product from a Canadian company, while Rochelle is committing to domestic production of the Extreme V. However, all this is somewhat offset by BAE Systems Hägglunds partnering with General Dynamics Land Systems Canada, which has a pretty good track record when working with the Canadian military. It's unclear if such a team would result in domestic assembly in London, Ontario, or just domestic service and support. True North Strategic Review, in its somewhat recent write-up on the DAME project, says that the vehicle needs to be able to operate in all remote and austere environments and in both extreme temperature and terrain conditions, as defined by STANAG 4370 AECTP-230, meaning it needs to be able to operate in high temperature conditions, A3 or 39 degrees Celsius, through low temperature, C3, minus 51 degrees Celsius. It must start without an external power source at minus 51 degrees Celsius. If true, then all three vehicles and their published low operating temperatures would not meet this requirement. However, the Extreme V's low temp of minus 30 degrees Celsius is of particular concern. Its military equivalent, Bronco, goes as low as minus 46, so perhaps some of this variant's design would be borrowed for the Canadian requirement. One big point worth noting is that if Canadian forces ever deploy to Europe with the Beowulf, it'll have an easy time finding spare parts and support due to the fact that the BVS-10, the non-Beowulf armoured version, has been ordered or operated by countries including the United Kingdom, Sweden, Germany, France, the Netherlands and Austria. Meanwhile, the unarmoured Beowulf won the US Army's competition for its cold weather all-terrain vehicle or CAT-V program. Sure, these are two different variants, but it's stated that the BVS-10 and the unarmoured BVS-10 Beowulf share approximately 80% parts commonality. It doesn't look like the D12 has the same broad customer base, while Extreme V is being used by civilian agencies in Japan, Thailand, Mexico and the Philippines. Its armoured counterpart Bronco is used by the armed forces of Singapore and Thailand, while it was used by British forces in Afghanistan as the Warthog, although it was removed from service in 2016. It's also said that it's currently being used by Ukrainian forces. One appealing feature of the Extreme V that makes it stand out from the others is its modular design, where the back cabin can be swapped out easily and replaced with the relevant payload. ST Engineering says that a wide range of modules has been explored for Extreme V, from hook lift systems to water jets. This could help with operational flexibility and maintenance. Just like the Boxer armoured vehicle, the drive module could be repaired while the mission module stays in service, and vice versa. But then again, whether this feature is enough to tip the scales is questionable. But that's where things currently stand in late August/early September 2026. Which vehicle do you think is more appealing and suitable for the Canadian forces? Let us know by leaving a comment.